Hello again, Brian King here, and as promised, I am going to teach you one of my best strategies, and it is how to help your child hear the word no. Because you and I both know if you got a kid with Asperger's or ADHD, the frustration tolerance they have is very low, sometimes even non-existent. And if you said no to something, they can act out violently even. And I developed this strategy with my now 14-year-old who was 6 at the time. And he simply had no tolerance for that word. If you told him no to even the simplest thing, he would get angry, he would rage, he would threaten to kill me. He would say things like, I'll slit your throat, I'll kill the dog, I'll destroy and I'll smash out the window. There was really no ceiling to the kind of threats that he would make. And on one occasion, this was when my now wife, Kathy, and I were dating, he went off on her so horribly that it was almost traumatizing for her to hear. And although I could kind of let his stuff roll off my back because I knew a lot about Asperger's and what was going on with him, but when it affected her that bad, I knew I had to nip it in the bud. So I kind of looked into my own little storehouse of skills that I had at the time, my background in social work, to see what I could come up with. And what I want to share with you in order to help you accomplish the same thing that I did with him, it's going to be pretty comprehensive. But understand that there's a lot of nuance to this. It's not like you can just follow 10 steps and all of a sudden that's going to be magic. Now, there are some steps to this, okay? But where you fill in the gaps can be very unique to your child and to your relationship. So consider the fact that when I teach this to you, it was formulated in response to my relationship with my son. And I have since taught this to clients over the years, and it has had very good results. So keep in mind that we may have to tweak it a little bit, but overall, it's a very solid strategy. Okay, so you ready to dive in? Excellent. These are the 4 steps that I want you to keep in mind while we're doing this. And of course, this is being recorded for you, so you will be able to replay it over and over to see just where these 4 steps get addressed in the strategy. So here are the 4 steps that we need to consider when changing a very intense meltdown in response to the word no, okay? Step 1 is identify the current pattern. In other words, what do me and my child do consistently, over and over again, that results in this meltdown or this violent reaction? The pattern is typically something very simple. The child will come and ask you for something, you say no, the child then gets really pissed off, threatens you, maybe breaks something, kicks something over. You punish the child. Child walks off in a huff. Now you both are upset. And nothing changes. This is just the dance. This is the pattern that you've always done. And no matter how much you say, I'm so sick of this, I wish you just learned to deal with it, you're part of the pattern. You're doing your part, your child's doing their part. So we need a new pattern. The second step is identify the beliefs that drive the pattern. And we'll get into those a little bit too. One of those beliefs tends to be that, of course, you would say yes because it makes sense in my head, therefore it should make sense in yours. So it's almost as though the no is never a consideration and is a shock to your child when he hears it. Okay, so the second step is identify the beliefs that drive that existing pattern. Step 3, interrupt the pattern. We've got to do something new. We've got to change the dance we've always done in order to bring in something new. So step 3 is interrupt the pattern and challenge the existing beliefs. One of them being, yes is the only acceptable answer. Well, clearly that's not a belief we can work with. So we need to challenge that. Step 4, create a new pattern with supportive beliefs. So we're going to introduce a new pattern once we've interrupted the existing one, and then we're going to add some new beliefs to it. You with me so far? Okay, so let's jump into it. When you think of the word no, at least from our standpoint, it's one of those words that you think is clear, it's easy to understand, speaks for itself, and you really need no further explanation, right? But as we talked about a little bit ago in the belief aspect of it, the way our kids hear it can be very different than the way we hear it. Because as crystal clear as you think it is, it can mean something very different to other people, okay? Now, for some people, no simply means no. They say, okay, I appreciate it. I accept your no. But others hear it more open-ended. They'll say, well, maybe she means not now. Maybe I should come back later. But our kiddos, in many cases, what I've learned is if they ask you for something and you say no, this is the internal dialogue. Not in all cases, but in many. The languaging they use is, you must not have heard me right when I asked the question. So I need to continue bugging you until you understand that it's your job to give me what I want. So no matter how many times you say no, they'll keep coming at you because of that belief. Do you know anyone like this? Is it your kid? Was it you at some point? I remember being like this as a kid, and I drove my mother nuts. The reality for us is that it's neither possible nor reasonable to give a person everything they want all the time. So as much as you try and please a child to pacify them, and some parents do this, and in some respects, you really can't blame them because all these blow-ups are exhausting. And sometimes you just want to break. So you'll give in just to prevent the blow-up. And you know what kind of a pattern that creates as well. But there's going to be a point where you're going to run out of stuff because most of us don't have unlimited resources, so it's not really easy to do. So since it's easy for some people to hear the word no, because they can turn it into not now, maybe later, it's really, really imperative for you to understand what your child hears when he hears the word no, so that you can begin to do something new. I once worked with a child who would really, really guilt trip his mom every time she wouldn't give him what he asked for. And one of his favorite lines would be, "You don't love me because if you did, you'd want me to be happy. And what I'm asking for is going to make me happy." And I watched this mother burst into tears because of how clever he was able to just twist her emotions and push her buttons. So what we're going to do is discuss a strategy for countering comments like that, okay? But for now, I want you to consider whether you've taken the time to examine whether you and your child define no the same way. What is your child hearing when you say no, okay? Now, when a child approaches you and asks for something, this is what you're going to do. We're getting into the strategy now. And I remember doing this with my oldest son for the first time. He was maybe 11. And I was surprised by how well it worked. So listen closely. I think he came to me and he wanted a new video game or something. And he was committed. It had to get done today. He was going to get it today. He decided it was going to get done today. And he gave me all the reasons why I would be driving him to get it. He basically eliminated me as having any needs at all. I was a means to an end for him. Okay? He's no longer like that, by the way. But in this situation, he was. So when a child approaches you like that and asks you for something, this is the first question you ask. You don't give them an answer yet. You don't say yes. You don't say no. You begin with this. You say, "Let me ask you something. If I were to answer your question by saying no, what would that mean to you?" And your tone is very curious. You're asking him or her to educate you on something. You're putting the power in your child's hands, which is really, really important here, okay? And we'll explain why in a little bit. You're giving them the position of teacher and you are the student. So you ask, what would it mean to you if I say no? Now, if you were to ask that of your child, what kind of answers do you think you would get? Do you think your child would be sad? Would your child be upset? Let me tell you the answers that I got from my boys, okay? They would say things like this to me. Well, it would mean that you hate me. If you told me no, it would mean you don't want me to be happy, that you don't love me and I'm a bad kid. It would make me sad, or it would be unfair if you said no. Now, none of the answers that they gave me were said in an angry tone because I hadn't said no yet, okay? I just asked the question, what if I said no? So we're talking about a hypothetical here, not an answer yet, okay? Now, at worst, they'd maybe get a little impatient or frustrated with me because they were expecting an immediate answer. So now that my children have told me what the word means to them, you hate me, you don't love me, you don't want me to be happy, which are pretty big deals. We may think it's, we're saying no to going out and playing before dinner. We're saying no to having a cookie instead of dinner. But they hear it as rejection. You don't love me, you hate me, okay? That's why they react so strongly. Now, trying to get these kind of answers after you've said no and after they've reacted strongly or melting down, not going to happen. They're in fight or flight now, and they are not resourceful. So it's important that you understand what they believe beforehand, okay? Because knowing what they're going to be hearing when you say no allows you to frame your answer to their request much more strategically, okay? Now, why might one of our kiddos be devastated by the word no as though he never expected to hear it? Keep in mind, our kiddos can be very black and white thinkers, have a lot of executive function challenges, so they're used to it being very difficult to make things happen, okay? And for kids like this who really need everything to work because they're so used to mistakes, a yes is a solution. It's an easy solution. So your child comes to you with a need, and a yes will satisfy that need and solve that problem without having to do any problem solving. There's no negotiating. There's no executive functioning. It's yes, I will get this for you. Okay? And they really want something simple to work every now and then. Make sense? So it is simple. So he comes to you thinking that yes is the only possible option because in a world filled with problems, a yes answer solves all of them. That's why yes is so important, okay? I can't emphasize that enough. Now, this, of course, is the result of years of having people solve problems for you. They're used to being rescued. They're used to saying, I don't get it, this is dumb, you help me. And people are seen as the solution to problems. If they're helped too much, they can develop a real sense of insecurity and really believe themselves to be incompetent because people don't trust them to solve problems because they're always doing it for them, okay? So if you say no to your child who is used to having others solve her problems, she may feel abandoned. Say, wait a minute, you solve the problems and you're not going to help me? That's unfair. They might even feel helpless. Now, I know that sounds extreme, but for a child that feels helpless without you, it can really seem like abandonment. She has come to you to solve a problem and she doesn't know how to do it, but you do. But you told her no. So now who can she count on? Now, I know this sounds irrational, but these can be some of the beliefs that our kids pick up over the years or decide is true. She thinks, if I can't count on you to solve my problems, nobody can. And this is a situation where being very solution focused is important, okay? Now, I told you about the situation with my oldest boy. He is now in college and doing beautifully. And he wanted me to buy him the video game. And I told him, I know you want it, but the money you want me to spend on it needs to be spent on other things such as groceries. I didn't say we can't afford it. That's too much money. I started getting into a conversation about prioritization, which is important in decision making, something our kiddos have a hard time doing. So I was introducing that to the conversation. So my question to him then, I know that you want it, but the money you want me to spend it on needs to be spent on groceries. So if you don't want to eat, then we can get your game. You see how potent that can be? Because I'm asking him to choose between two needs. One is a want, the video game. One is a need, eating. And yeah, he's a real picky eater, but he still wants to eat, but he also wants the game. So I gave him the option between survival and entertainment. So my question to him is, if you want both, and I need to spend my money on food, then what's the solution? Or how do we get the money you want? Because my money is going towards groceries. So he said, I can do some extra chores around the house. I clarified that I'd still have to pay him with grocery money. So I encouraged him to think of additional solutions. He called his grandmother, my mom, to ask for her ideas. And this is awesome because he's looking beyond me for resources. I'm no longer the one-stop shop that if I say no to him, the world has come to an end. So as it turns out, my parents at the time were planning on leaving for a multi-week vacation and asked him if he'd like to earn money by mowing their lawn while they were gone. And he agreed, and therefore we had the solution. He was going to get money, he wasn't going to get it from me, and he was going to have to exercise delayed gratification. A lot of wonderful things there. So I didn't tell him no. I just told him I wasn't going to create the solution for him, but I did support him in finding a solution. Now, remember that these strategies take time to make a routine part of how you and your child communicate. There's no magic wand out there, no matter how much you want things to happen quickly. Now, the first few times, it's important to expect some pushback because this is a new approach. It's a new pattern. You are changing the routine. You are breaking the rules. That's not how it's supposed to go. You're supposed to tell me no. I'm supposed to be pissed off and feel powerful and threaten to break things. Okay? You are essentially renegotiating your relationship with your child, renegotiating that interaction. So you might ask, how are you going to earn this? Then the response you get is that maybe the first time he ignores you and walks away. Then a short time later, he returns and asks, okay, when are you going to get it from me? In this case, the video game. It isn't that he didn't hear you the first time. He's simply following the old script the two of you had, and he only knows the lines for that conversation. So you changed it up on him. You were supposed to say yes or no. You didn't say that. You said, how are you going to earn this? He didn't know what to do, so he walked away, regrouped, and came back. Okay? So he needs some explanation on this new conversation you're introducing, this new pattern. He needs to know what you're up to. Let's be transparent about this. So when he continues to ask, so when are you going to take me to buy this? You can respond, as soon as we determine how you're going to afford it. Okay? You are explaining that you want to explore an option other than solving the problem. You're not saying no. You're not saying yes. In a win-win relationship, which is what we're looking for here, both people have to get something. Okay? And if you're going to do your part and drive him there or drive her there, then he or she needs to determine how he will pay for it, how he will do his part. Now, he may be frustrated at first because, again, this is a new process. And once you start doing this more routinely, it should get easier and he should have more success with it because he's going to experience it working. And to point out to him that the sooner he gets on board with this win-win solution, the sooner he gets what he wants. So he's clear that the payoff is coming. The yes is coming. It's just not in the form he might have expected it. It's going to be through his own efforts. Now, if he continues to resist you, you can encourage him to reflect on how sticking with the old way is actually sabotaging his ability to get what he wants. So ask him, Is it causing you a problem for me to not answer this question? So you're encouraging him to introspect, to reflect, and see, is it bothering you that I haven't said yes or no yet? Because the more you do not answer the question, the longer you go without this toy, video game, whatever it is. So you say, the more you don't answer the question, the longer you go without this toy. Is that correct? So now you're the student again, asking for clarification. So if he wants to solve the problem about having the video game, he can answer the question of how he is going to earn it. So think of this in terms of problems and solutions. He thinks currently that giving in to you is causing him a problem. It's causing him to lose. What he doesn't realize is that by going along with this new way, with the win-win option, it'll solve the problem. Okay? Now, let's examine the no answer a little more deeply. So far, we've discussed, how would you take it if I said no? That's how you began this entire exchange. And your child would say things like, well, I would get mad or angry. Well, now you understand the belief, but we haven't changed the belief yet. Because if he says he'll get mad and start throwing stuff, now you know what's coming. Now you know what he's anticipating that he is going to feel when he hears no. So when you do say no, you get exactly what's predicted. He pushes your button, you push his, and all hell breaks loose, okay? So you need to shift his understanding of no so that doesn't happen. This is where we introduce the new belief. Now, it's important to realize that the process of helping him hear the word no without melting down requires the use of probably many other strategies, which I could discuss, but let me kind of walk you through a step-by-step dialogue of what it would look like to actually do this. Now, let's use two fictional characters, Mary and John, okay? And the conversation begins with clarifying whether John has considered an answer other than yes before making his request. And I think my son is coming home from school. So there's going to be a little hustle and bustle. I'll just keep talking and we'll see. I think the door's locked. So, hold on a minute. This is always fun when things happen live. Hey, I'm just recording a video, okay? So, Mary and John are talking. John makes a request, and Mary asks, is there a particular answer you're expecting to get to this question? Or can I answer the way I want to? John responds, well, you're supposed to say yes. Mary, well, if I'm unable to give you what you want and I have to say no, what happens then? John, I will be very mad and I'll break things. Mary, oh, so you'll get mad and break things. Is that correct? So Mary is using a combination of clarification and it's mostly clarification. I don't want to get into the other strategies that are part of this because it'll just be too confusing. I want to keep it simple. So Mary clarifies. So you're going to get bad break things. Is that correct? John says, yes. Mary, so do you think getting mad and breaking things will make me want to give you what you want? John, no. So now Mary starts renegotiating, starts talking about how the relationship is going to become new, okay? So Mary says, so if you getting mad and breaking things won't make me want to give you what you want, then what will? John says, well, maybe if I was nice to you. Mary, you're right. I like when you're nice to me. So if my answer to your question is no, how can you be nice to me? John, well, by not getting mad. Mary, actually, I can understand if you get a little upset. You know, I get upset when I don't get what I want. But how do you be nice to me when you're upset? John, well, I'd say I'm mad, but I wouldn't break things. Mary, is that something that you think you can do, John? John, I think so. Mary, would you like to practice? John, okay. Mary, now let me ask you please ask me your question again, and I'm going to say no, and then you respond the way you just said you would, okay? So let's proceed as though the little practice between John and Mary went smoothly. Now, Mary clarifies with John to help him understand the results he got from the new approach. That the pattern had changed. He doesn't react angrily, she doesn't react angrily, and he doesn't get punished. Okay, so Mary says, that was great. Did you get what you wanted? John said, well, no. Mary asks, is there anything else you didn't get? John said, well, I didn't get in trouble. And Mary asks, well, why not? John said, because I was nice to you. Mary, so you didn't get what you asked for, but you also didn't get in trouble. John said, right. So Mary asks, are you happier when we talk to each other this way, instead of arguing and fighting? John says, yeah. Mary says, I'm happier too, because when we talk to each other this way, you get to be treated nicely instead of punished. And I get to feel like you respect me more. And we can feel good about talking to each other instead of fighting. Does this sound more fair to you? And John says, well, yeah, it does. So we keep going. So now Mary says, now let's say you ask me to buy you something you really, really want, and you are expecting to get a yes from me, but you get a no. Then what do you give me when you get a no from me? What are we going to do from now on, John? John says, well, I'll just say okay. And Mary says, then how do we get to feel about talking to each other? John says, we get to feel happy. But what if I really want it? Mary says, well, then we can talk about it. And you can explain to me why you feel it would help you to get what you want, and we will figure out if there is some way you can get it. How does that sound? John said, great. Then Mary says, now here's something to think about, John. What if one of us forgets this agreement that we just made, and one of us gets mad and ends up being mean to the other person? What do we do then? John said, well, I don't know. Do we get in trouble? And Mary said, well, we might, unless we figure out a way to remember our deal. And John said, how do we do that? Mary said, we agree between the two of us that if one of us gets mad, the other person can ask to take a 5-minute break. That way, the person who got mad can calm down. Then we can start again. But this time, we'll keep our deal. John said, I like that. Now, of course, the conversation between John and Mary can go on and on. But what I've given you here is enough to understand the process, I hope. And there's always room for more questions. You can always ask me questions. I'm happy to clarify this for you. Now, and once you're more familiar with the strategy, and you've both internalized the beliefs that is behind it, that fuels it, what you're working to accomplish, what experience you're working on having, then you'll be better able to build the partnership between you and your child that you want. One that's not win-lose, one that's not explosive. Now, let me clarify something. The spirit of the dialogue I've just described between Mary and John, as parents, we don't enjoy being spoken to hurtfully by our children. We can have some strong reactions ourselves. So when your child gets angry with you and gets punished, that's a win-lose approach, in which the opportunity to negotiate the win-win, a way that'll work for both of you, that opportunity gets lost. Your child's anger is just a way of letting you know how unfairly treated he feels, because he feels you have the power to solve the problem, he doesn't. And when you say no, he feels helpless. And that's the kind of belief and paradigm we want to change. And by threatening to punish you, by melting down, he feels he's punishing you for not helping, for not rescuing. And he doesn't realize that he is actually sabotaging himself. So practice this strategy. Work for the win-win. It's going to take some time. Be patient with the two of you. But I'm confident that if you work on this enough, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to guide you. Then things can transform between the two of you. I've done this with two of my kids. The third one never had this issue. And I've helped many, many parents and children over the years with this strategy to get rid of the explosion and establish some connection. So I hope this was helpful for you. If so, please comment, let me know. You can always message me if you have any questions. And if there's anybody you think can benefit from this, feel free to share it. It's been great talking to you. We'll talk again soon.